From the Mahabharata, life lessons from the characters in the Mahabharata, and I'll be discussing from the perspective of the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. So I'll read something from one of my latest books on the Gita. This is Prayers Inspired by the Gita. So in this book, what I have done is I've taken prayers from the Gita and then verses from the Bhagavad Gita, and each verse has been summarized as one sentence affirmation, and then the shloka and its poetic translation, and then we have just a one-page prayer. So we'll read one of these and then we'll discuss based on that. So if you like, you can repeat after me. My dear Lord, please free me from the selfishness that leads to blindness. Let's recite the verse. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamaka pandavaschaiva kimakurvat sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, on the Kurukshetra's righteous field, where warriors stood with weapons to wield, my sons and the Pandavas, eager for fight, oh Sanjay, what did they do using their might? This is Bhagavad Gita 1.1. So I would request different participants to read one paragraph, and then we will discuss based on that. Do we have a second mic by any chance? Or anybody has a mic in their throat? Some people are gifted with very strong voices. Who would like to read the first paragraph?
My dear Lord, I often find myself trapped in the tendency to think of others' interests as being in conflict with my interests. To divide the world into simple, neat groups of those who are my people versus those who are against my people. Blinded by my own limited vision, I forget that this we-they mentality is the fundamental duality that leads to conflicts which can grow into conflagrations, devouring not just communities but even countries and civilizations.
Yes, thank you. So, this is spoken by at the start of the Gita, where Dhritarashtra is asking, and there is a Mamakaha Pandava. That is the duality, my people and the Pandavas. They are also his people, they are his cousins, that they are his nephews. The Pandavas and Kauravas are cousins, but he has forgotten that, or at least he is overlooking that. So that same theme, that when we function in life, life is difficult and there is danger at every step. So at one level, we have to protect ourselves. We have to protect our interests. Now if there is danger, then first of all, we would want to save ourselves. Then we want to save our family. Or we want to save our family and ourselves, whichever way. And then we can look for other people to be saved. So can I help? If the fire breaks out, I want to save my family first. That's fair enough. But, so there is a difference between being concerned about oneself and being concerned about oneself at the cost of others. That means to think that my survival requires others' destruction. See, competition is just a fact of life, and we cannot avoid competition. The competition can either be constructive. Constructive means what happens is the two people who are competing, when they compete, by that competition, both of them become better. Now it may be that one person might succeed, other person might fail. But essentially constructive competition is about, I try to become better and then that inspires you to become better. As contrasted, the destructive competition is where both, destructive competition is where both are trying to pull each other down. Now it may possible at one level people may become better, but there's a difference, we will talk about this, that there's a difference between character and competence. Like some people might become better in competence. Competence is more about skills. Character is more about how we use those skills. So we will see how the rivalry between the Pandavas and the Kauravas affected different characters. So the idea is, wanting to protect our interests is nothing wrong. But the selfishness that leads to blindness, where we start thinking that I have to pull others down, that is the serious problem. So, yesterday I started this discussion on the Mahabharata. How many of you were by chance there for yesterday's class? Okay. How many of you were not there for yesterday's class? Okay. How many of you are not there for today's class? Okay. So now, yesterday I basically said that we are going to discuss the epic from the perspective of dharma, that what is the right thing to do? How can we learn to take good, what is the right thing to do? How can we learn that and implement that in our life? So the Mahabharata, we are discussing the perspective of 4 C's. Does anyone remember the 4 C's? What is C? Choices. Life always puts us with choices, and the choices lead to consequences. And in many ways, a person's life story could be summarized in what choice they made and what consequence they had because of that. Now, the choices don't happen in isolation. What are the 2 factors which affect the choices? Yes, externally, and under certain conditions we make some choices. And internally, there are conditions. So, now conditions and conditioning. So basically, if you want to look at a person's life story beyond simply the events that happen in their life, if you want to learn something from them, then we can look at these things. Look at their life in terms of these 4 C's. So yesterday we started by looking at the trajectory of 3 characters: the Pandavas, Kauravas and Karna. So now, we have already discussed how between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, there has already been a meeting place. That their paths have crossed, and when their paths crossed, there was envy among Duryodhana, especially, and then things started going downwards. Now, we will discuss about the incident where Karna's path crossed with both of them. Yesterday, the theme we discussed was that life is unfair to everyone. The Pandavas were orphans. The Kauravas, they had a father who was blind. That's why they didn't have a clear right to a kingdom. Karna didn't have royal parentage, so he was deprived of things. So life is in many ways unfair to everyone in some or the other way. To some extent, the Pandavas and Karna made good choices. They continued to learn. And Duryodhana also learned, but it was, as I discussed, when we are learning, there are 2 aspects. There is our skills, our values, which is associated with our competence. So there is a skills which is associated with our competence. And then there are our values. Values is associated with our character. So at one level, all of them, the Pandavas, Kauravas and Karna, all of them grew in terms of skills in different ways. Now the Kauravas, we will see the Pandavas went upwards, the Kauravas went downwards, and then Karna, we will look at what happened to him. So when this situation was going on, at that particular time, that's quite creative. I was in America a few months ago and I was discussing at a corporate program. So there, discussing Indians are very successful wherever they go. So this American manager was saying, one reason Indians are successful is that he himself had learned, this American, he had learned this word, they do jugaad. If things don't work, somehow they will do some jugaad and make things work. And he said that is an advantage and that's a disadvantage. Because when things are not working, they will do jugaad and make things work. But the problem is, when things can be made to work systematically, even then also they rely on jugaad only. So they don't set up systems. If you want, I have a stand. You can use my stand. You don't need a jugaad. Use me. Thank you. So now, so if we consider the Kauravas, they were living already in the kingdom, and the Pandavas had come back to the kingdom, and they were Kshatriyas, so they all had to learn. And Bhishma was training them to some extent, but Bhishma was busy with the royal administration. And then finally Drona happened to come to the kingdom. And each of these incidents is quite dramatic. We are not going to go into specific incidents. We want to focus on this principle of choices. So when Bhishma came to know that Drona is there, he knew how brilliant Drona was. And in one instance, Drona had also been instructed by Parshuram. And Bhishma himself had also had Parshuram as his guru. So he was delighted. He told Drona, we can give you an entire academy over here. We will build an academy for you and you can study over here. You can teach over here. And then the Pandavas and the Kauravas, all of them started studying. And his academy became so celebrated that others also started coming over there. So we have Gurgaon now in near Delhi, which is called the Gurugram. That is a place where where Drona's academy was said to be there. And there, everybody learned, everybody grew. And then, among everyone, the different Pandavas grew in different skills. Now, Duryodhan excelled in mace fighting. And Bhima also excelled in mace fighting. There had already been a rivalry between them. While both of them were equal, Bhima was physically stronger. Duryodhan tried to equal that by practicing and developing his skills, and they were intense rivals. Now, Yudhishthira became very good at spear fighting, other Pandavas became very good. But the one person who stood out in Drona's Gurukul was Arjuna. In the Gurukul was the place where extraordinary genius met extraordinary determination. In general, we will talk about this a little later also in one of the sessions, but the Bhagavad Gita in 18.14 says, what are the factors by which action leads to results? So, adhishthanam tatha karta, karanam cha pruthak vidha, vividhasya pruthak cheshta, daivam chaivatra panchamam. So, broadly, we can reduce that to three factors. I like to use the acronym TECH for this. That talent, environment, and commitment. So, if you want to succeed in life, we need talent. Especially if somebody wants to succeed extraordinarily in life, you need talent. Now, along with talent, the talent has to be supported and nourished in the right environment. And then, talent and environment are also there. The person has to practice, the person has to learn. Talent is raw. From that, it has to become like a skill. So, now Indians, for example, young Indians are becoming chess champions now. India has more chess grandmasters than any other country. So that's now that logical, analytical skill is required for chess. It's always been there in India. But now the environment has been created. That there is greater focus from the state, there is greater focus from the support from the parents. And maybe 20-30 years ago, Indians were having much more financial anxiety than what we have now. It is always there, but overall some level of prosperity has come in India. So in the past, parents would always pressurize children, become an engineer, become a doctor, have a very safe career. And there's a reason for that. But now there's a little more support and flexibility and Indians are flourishing. So, but it's not only talent and environment. commitment is also required. So in the West, Indian kids are winning all spelling bees. Spelling bees are where you spell words. Indians are not very good at pronouncing English words, but spelling they're very good. It's quite extraordinary. Because pronunciation often I've been speaking English since my childhood. But when I go to America, people say they don't understand my pronunciation. Sometimes they say my accent is quite thick. I try to speak slowly, but with respect to spelling, so the talent is there. Then there is some supportive environment. Parents encourage, parents support, sometimes parents pressure. It's all required part of the environment. But then the kids themselves are ready to work hard. So if you see, Arjuna had the talent. He had great archery skill. So so talent is more like the seed. Environment is like the garden. And commitment is like the gardening. So Arjuna had the talent. Drona's Gurukul was the environment. And then Arjuna practiced tirelessly. Arjuna was he outclassed everyone else. The person who came nearest to him was Ashwatthama. And Ashwatthama was the son of the teacher. So there is always this facility that, the possibility that there might be some partiality towards the child. In English there is a word called Nepo baby. Nepo baby means what? Nepo is nepotism. Nepotism is where you favor your family members. So if somebody is the owner of a company and that the son or daughter is employed in the company. Now did you get there by merit or did you get there just because you are related to the person? So they call Nepo babies. So, or Nepo kids or whatever. So now what happened was, Drona was a bit partial to Ashwatthama. And Ashwatthama also wanted to please Drona. But Arjuna was just too good. But there was a rivalry between them, but Arjuna soon outclassed him. And then one night, when he was eating food at night, suddenly the lamp went off. And when the lamp went off, he was eating food and he had picked up the food in his hands and his hand just naturally went to his mouth. And when this hand went to his mouth and he ate it, that was Arjuna's Newton moment. Because Newton had that apple fall on his head. Hey, wow. So of course Arjuna came before Newton. So we could say Newton had an Arjuna moment. But either way, it is an ordinary incident. But just like Newton, an ordinary apple fell on him, it is an ordinary incident. If a monkey had been there in place of Newton, what would the monkey have done? Just picked the apple and eaten it. And most people would have done the same thing. But Arjuna was so dedicated to his craft that he thought, if I can eat in the dark, if my hand does not need light to find the mouth, then I can hit targets without seeing them also in the dark. And that's how he started practicing. And once he started practicing tirelessly, that just took him to another league. So all day he would be learning archery skills and practically all the night he would be practicing. That's how he got the name Gudakesha, one who has conquered sleep. And then finally came the graduation ceremony, or nowadays we call the convocation ceremony. Now those convocation ceremonies were slightly different. Normally speaking, when there's a convocation ceremony, it's primarily like a certificate, or the award certificate is given and some award might be given to toppers, and maybe one student who is the top student might give a convocation speech. But this exhibition was different. This was an exhibition. And the reason for this was two things. That generally speaking, the education of the children is of interest to the parents, naturally. And that's why parents may ask the children when they come back from school, what did you learn in school today? And they want to test. Now, with respect to Kshatriyas, they are meant to be protectors of the kingdom. And yes, at that time there was monarchy. Monarchy is different from dictatorship as we know it. It is, yes, the king's children would become the king, successors. But while there was hierarchy, each individual actually had to earn trust and build confidence. Because see, citizens will follow the king, but generally there is some level of when there is following, when we follow someone, there are multiple reasons why we might follow. One is because there is force. We will be punished if we don't follow that person. Now, that could be one level, let's put force, or we can say fear. That could be the lowest level of following. That person will punish me if I don't. But then the best level would be inspiration or love. That this person is so good that by following this person, it will be good for me. This person is my well-wisher. So generally, nobody can rule only based on creating fear in others. The Kshatriyas had to inspire confidence among the subjects that they were competent enough to protect them. And that's why the martial exhibition that was there was for all these princes to show their skills to the citizens. That these are going to be your future kings and see how good they are to protect you. So like in many countries on their Independence Day or their National Day, there may be an Air Force exhibition, there may be a military parade. That is to show that we have competent people. And these are our skills, these are our resources, these are our personnel, and we can protect you. So this martial exhibition was like that. It was for the graduates of Drona's academy to show their skills. And that's where everyone came and started showing their skills. And Duryodhan and Bhima both showed their mace skills. And then both of them were almost equal. Then there was a duel between them. And then soon that duel, so it was supposed to be an exhibition fight, but it became dead earnest. So then immediately Kripa intervened and stopped them. Enough now. Both of them glared at each other. And then Arjuna came. And that was what we call in movie language the showstopper. It was so brilliant. Arjuna, while marching, racing on a horse, he could just shoot arrows, and there was a tree on the other side, and he just broke every single leaf in that tree without hurting any branch in it. All the branches remained as it is, and not a single leaf was left on the tree. And that is just one among the many skills that he exhibited. And everybody was wowed by it. The applause was thunderous. And the greater the applause, the more was the pain felt by two individuals. Who are the two individuals? Duryodhana and Ashwatthama. Okay. Ashwatthama it was never a destructive competition. It was more of Dhritarashtra. Why didn't they applaud my sons like this? And Duryodhana, he's so good. So, now at this particular point, when Arjuna was having his moment, he had worked extremely hard. And this was the moment, it was not just the moment of his glory, it was also the glory of his guru. That his guru had trained him, and his guru had trained him so competently. And at that time, suddenly, as everybody was applauding, the thunderous voice was heard over the thunderous applause. This, I can do everything that Partha has done, and I can do more. Suddenly the applause died down, and everybody looked, and at the entrance of the exhibition arena, there was a tall, majestic figure standing, and he marched forward. Who was this? This was Karna. Now, Karna had also worked very hard. Karna had not been accepted in Drona's academy. Then he had gone to Parshuram, and he had served his guru faithfully, and Parshuram had been pleased with the service, and he had been trained. Now from Karna's perspective, Parshuram did not have any academy. So it is like in today's example, if we consider, like if there is some eminent university where you go and get education, and that university has great campus placement. So the companies also know that here we have good students, good graduates, so they come over there. On the other hand, there is some very good scientist, good mathematician, good computer programmer who teaches at individual level but who does not have any academy. So you may be very trained, but then there are no prospects after that. So from Karna's perspective, he was looking now for an opportunity to show his skills. He had learned, and as I said, he had the talent. Now he had got the environment in one sense, in the sense that he had learned with Parshuram. He had commitment. But now environment is required not just to develop the talent, but it's also to display the talent, use the talent. So he was also looking for environment. So in one sense, from Karna's perspective, we could say that it was reasonable. This is good opportunity for him to show his skills. But from Arjuna's perspective and from Drona's perspective, it was different. Now this was Arjuna's moment of glory. This was Drona's moment of glory. This was for the citizens to see how great, how well trained, how competent were their future protectors. So this was, while it was a public ceremony, it was a specific occasion. It was like the graduation program for Drona's academy. So Arjuna especially treated Karna as a gate crasher. It was this person, this upstart, has come and stolen my moment. Now, so there's a functional side to occasions, but there is also an emotional side to occasions. An emotional side to occasions means that, say, if there's one student, if there's a joint family, and in that family, one particular young man has graduated with honors, and there's a combined occasion, and there they tell that, okay, I graduated. And at that time, somebody else comes and says, okay, I'm going to divorce my wife, or I'm going to divorce my husband. Now, do you have to tell it at that time? Isn't it? This is a moment of celebration, and you want to steal that moment away from that person. It's a hard-earned moment. It's a well-deserved moment, and you could have told it at some other time. So for Arjuna, it was a moment that felt stolen from him. And then Karna marched forward and he says, can I exhibit my skills? So Drona was curious. Drona had known that. He recognized Karna. This was the same person who had come to my academy. I had not accepted. Yes, you can exhibit. And then Karna started exhibiting the skills. And he equaled everything that Arjuna had done. And again the applause was incredible. Who is this person who has come and who is so astonishing in his skills? But then his starting claim had been, I can do better than what Partha has done. So he was not able to do better. So then he said, can I have a duel with Arjuna? And Arjuna immediately grabbed his bow. He said, I will teach this person a lesson right now. And it's suppose there's any talent competition, something like that is there. Now in a talent competition, there is some process by which somebody can be invited to participate. Now anybody can come and exhibit their skills. But here when he was asking for a formal duel, he said, we need to know your antecedents. We need to know who are you. This is the arena for future protectors of society. There are future Kshatriyas who are going to lead society, and everyone here is from illustrious background. So now this background sometimes is pasted as, it can be seen as casteist terms. That's caste discrimination. That's one way of looking at it. But another point is that it's a question of wherever we are, we want to know the background of a person. If you're going to employ someone, you're going to have a relationship with someone, if you're going to give some role to someone, it's natural to want to know the background. So whichever way you look at it, now Karna's head fell. And that's when one person saw this as his moment of opportunity. Who was that? Duryodhan. Duryodhan had been thinking, I can deal with Bhima, but who will deal with Arjuna? And he felt that Karna was an answer, and he said, You have seen this person's skills. How can somebody with such skills not be a Kshatriya? He is a Kshatriya by accomplishment. If you think he is not a Kshatriya, I will give him a kingdom. And he granted him Angadesh. Now here, we will see something significant which is often overlooked. See, the whole kingdom was a matter of disputation. Who was going to be the successor? Either the Pandavas or the Kauravas. So now, when Duryodhan gave the Anga kingdom, did he even have the right to give that kingdom? It is a question. But the Pandavas had enough sense of the honor of their dynasty, that the Kshatriyas are meant to be charitable, and if one member from our family has given charity, others said, no, we can't give this much charity. That would be a disgrace for the dynasty. So they did not oppose it. They could have. So here we see that Karna stole Arjuna's movement. Arjuna could have stole Karna's movement. Arjuna did not do that. Now Karna was coronated. At that time his father Adirath came over there, and then it became revealed he was a Sutaputra. Some people mocked him for that. But once the Rajya Abhishek was done, at that time he became ready to fight. But at that particular moment, the sun was reaching the horizon, the sunset, and the duel didn't happen over there. So here, at this particular point, we will try to look at how karma and destiny work together. So some things we may say are destined. Destined means, the word destiny means जो होना ही था, जो होने ही वाला था. This was meant to happen. This was meant to happen and it happened. But sometimes we use this word destiny in one sense. Now another one say destiny is that it is potential. This, suppose we see somebody who is very good at music. Sometimes 4 or 5 year old kids, they're just so good at musical instruments. So this child is destined to be a great musician. So that means potential is there. So both words can be used for we use the word destiny in both senses. So somebody who is very good at maths, and then say they win the maths Olympiad also, then you say this child has fulfilled his or her destiny. So that means we're talking about potential being actualized. So destiny is used in both senses. So that Arjuna and Karna and Duryodhana, they met in this particular circumstance. It is not that Karna had any bad feelings towards Arjuna at starting. There is no evidence that Karna had done anything evil before this. Yes, he had lied to Parshuram, but that was just so that he could get education. Parshuram had said, I will teach only Brahmanas, and he had pretended to be a Brahmana to get that education. But that is not evil. So now, till this point, Karna's character seems to be good. And we could say Karna had had to work harder than the Pandavas and the Kauravas to get education. Because there was no academy, there were no peers to support him, to encourage him. He only had one guru whom he had, and he was always with the guru and always had to please the guru. So his character, there was no question about it till this particular point. Now when the rivalry starts happening between Karna and Arjuna, we could say this is also circumstantial. That they met in a particular way and they had a particular competing set of skills, and Karna ended up on the side of Duryodhana. And then that side was opposed to Arjuna. So we could say the rivalry was destiny. Now there is a difference between rivalry and enmity. What do you think is the difference between rivals and enemies?
Rival is a fair competition.
Rival is a fair competition. Okay, that's one part of it.
Rivals don't intend to destroy each other.
Yes, rivals don't intend to destroy each other. Yes, so for example, when there is a rivalry, both are seeking to get the same goal. Say for example in Wimbledon or in tennis, There are two players might be top players, and both of them are rivals. Now off the field they may be good friends also. So rivals, they compete against each other, but they don't hate each other. Their purpose is both of them are seeking the same goal. But in their enemies, their purpose is not to win a particular tournament, it is to destroy the other person. So rivalry is constructive competition, or it can be constructive competition. But enmity becomes destructive competition. So that Karna and Arjuna became rivals, that we could say was destiny. It just happened that way. Now this is where how things work out, what is past, what happens because of past karma, what happens because of present karma. That's what we'll try to discuss a little bit more now. At the point when Duryodhan gave Karna the Angadesh, Duryodhan is actually, he also has some abilities. I was once invited to give a talk in a college in India, and it is a bit of a leftist kind of college. So they wanted life lessons, they wanted some lessons from the Mahabharata. But they sent an email, they said, don't tell some usual morality tales. Don't tell some fresh insights. So then my talk I gave is leadership lessons from Duryodhan. And I started by talking that, I asked the audience, you can ask them, how many of you have younger siblings? Any of you has younger siblings? Okay. Everyone else has, all of you are the younger sibling? Okay. So now, if you have younger siblings, how easy is it for you to get your younger siblings to listen to you? How easy is it to get your younger siblings to listen to you and to obey you? Very difficult, isn't it? So the Duryodhan had 99 younger siblings. And all of them followed him. Now, we could say that he scared all of them, or you can say all of them are equally evil. But it's not that simple. See, even people who are evil can have differences of opinion. And he could have scared them, but again, fear alone doesn't work. Duryodhan was in some ways very good at optics, at symbolic things. So when he built palaces, he actually made Dushasan's palace better than his own palace. And his idea was, I am the leader, but I am doing all this for all of you. And the proof of this is, see, Dushasan's palace is better than mine. And that's why when Krishna came as the peace messenger, he offered Krishna to stay in Dushasan's palace. That is the best palace in our kingdom. So similarly here, when he gave the kingdom to Karna, Karna felt deeply indebted. He says, you have saved my honor. You have given me something so extraordinary. I am so grateful to you. What can I do for you? And this was the time when Duryodhan came with like 1-2, there is a knockout punch. He said, I want only your lifelong friendship. So sometimes some people give some favor to others, but they make that other person feel so bad. You are so poor, you are so worthless, and I am being so kind and giving a favor to you. But here when Duryodhan said, I want to be your friend, I want you to be my friend, Karna was completely bowled over by that. He felt, this person, how kind is this person? He wants me to be his friend. And Karna's heart was completely compromised. He says, that you will have till my dying breath. Now those words would extract a heavy price from Karna later. But we could say, see, in the course of our life, while every moment is important, some moments are life-changing. The moment when, say, we get admission in the top university, or we get acceptance letter for a big job or something like that. So Karna meeting Duryodhan was like a life-changing moment for him. From an unknown Sutaputra, now he became the king of Angaraj, and he also became a friend of Duryodhan. He was a powerful prince. So in one sense, this was a life-changing moment. Arjuna would have his life-changing moment later when he won the hand of Draupadi. And we'll talk about that moment when we come to that little later. But here, let's move a little forward. And Karna could sense immediately. Karna was not naive. He could sense that there is a deep-rooted tension between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And then as Duryodhana drew him into his inner circle, then Duryodhana said, we want to destroy the Pandavas. And in order to destroy the Pandavas, how do we go about doing it? So Karna said that just challenge them to a fight. You can deal with Bhima and I will deal with Arjuna. And then you can have the kingdom. So now, internally what happened for Duryodhana, while Duryodhana accepted Karna as a friend, in the hierarchy, Karna was still lower than Duryodhana. In age, he was slightly older, somewhat older, but still, Duryodhana had done the favor to Karna. And Duryodhana had one more a consultant, that was Shakuni. Now, Shakuni became like what is called a surrogate father. Surrogate is a substitute. See, when the father figure is not present in a child's life, especially a son's life, even a daughter's life, when the father figure is not present, then that leaves a hole. And especially in America, it is all parts of the world, but in America especially, this is a study has been done, that many kids who join gangs, often they come from broken families. And broken family generally means there's a single mother taking care. There are single fathers also, but that's rare. Generally the custody is given to the mother. So the single mother, the mother may work very hard to take care of the child. But parenting is a two-person's job. It is not a one-person's job. If one person tries to do it, they need to be praised for doing it. But it's not at all easy. So what happens if those kids don't have a father figure? Then often they join gangs, because in the gang there is some hierarchy, there are some big people, and those become like the gang leaders become like the elder brother or become like a substitute father figure. So now Dhritarashtra was there, but Dhritarashtra was a weak person. And that weakness was what led to Duryodhana never respecting Dhritarashtra. The topic we're discussing is about selfishness that leads to blindness. So what happened is, let's read the next paragraph. We'll come back to this. Who would like to read? Yes, please.
Through your words of wisdom, you mercifully remind me that we all belong to one cosmic family, your family. The more I strive to align my heart with yours, the more I become free from the selfishness that leads to blindness. And when, by your mercy, I am granted even a small drop of the mood of selfless service to you, then I may gradually see that all living beings are your parts, even those who oppose your interests, even those with whom I sometimes need to contend.
Yes. So, see, in the Bhagavad Gita, although Krishna tells Arjuna to fight, Krishna never at any particular point calls upon Arjuna to hate the Kauravas. If Krishna's purpose had only been to get Arjuna to fight, he could just have reminded Arjuna. Do you remember how Duryodhana tried to disrobe Draupadi? Do you remember Dushasana as he dragged her robes? Do you remember Karna as he called Draupadi a prostitute? Just a few sentences like that would have incited Arjuna's blood. And Arjuna would have started fighting. Krishna did not want Arjuna to fight in that vengeful mood. The fight was not for revenge, the fight was for dharma. And that's why Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight in the proper consciousness. So, now what happened was that there is a spectrum. There is weakness and there is wickedness. So weakness means that when temptations come, that person is not able to say no to the temptations. But wickedness is where the person goes out of the way to do wrong things. That person gets joy in doing wrong things. So weakness means can't say no to temptations. Wickedness means doesn't want to say no. Why should I say no? Yeah, this is I want to enjoy. So weakness. So Dhritarashtra was weak. Duryodhan was wicked. There's a difference between the two of them. So what happened was that there is in any relationship there is attachment, and there can be attachment and there can be affection. So now what is the difference between the two of them? The main defining difference is that whenever there is affection, if the other person makes some request, then we don't like to say no. Say if a child says, I want this toy, or I want this phone, I want this gadget, we don't like to say no. But attachment is where we can't say no. Sometimes in romantic movies, this may be shown as a sign of love. I can never say no to you. Well, that's not necessarily a sign of love. Now, if we like to say no to someone, there's not even affection over there, isn't it? But in general, for sometimes that person's good, for sometimes our good, for sometimes for the good of the relationship, we have to say no. But Dhritarashtra just could not say no. So what happens is, because Dhritarashtra would never say no, what happened is Duryodhan, I can manipulate him wherever the way I want. So Dhritarashtra was going out of his way to please Duryodhan, but Duryodhan had no respect for Dhritarashtra. Because this person can control and manipulate him. So then he did not have a father figure. So what happened? For him, the father figure became Shakuni. And what happened with Shakuni is that Shakuni told Karna, you're just like a child. You don't know how politics works. And in a war, there is no certainty of victory. It is better to defeat your enemies without war. And from Duryodhan's perspective, Shakuni was much more experienced. So Duryodhan would repeatedly listen to Shakuni. And that's how Karna went along with the plan to have the Pandavas burned alive in Varnavath. So basically what happened is that Karna was a good person, or at least in terms of character, but the more he became attached to Duryodhan, he would propose, let's have a straightforward fight. Duryodhan would say no. And when Duryodhan would say no, Karna would start feeling a bit insecure. I want to be a part of this group. See, if you repeatedly give suggestion to someone, and someone is a bit senior to us, and each time they do the exact opposite of what we are told, what we have suggested, then we will start thinking, why should I speak at all? So Karna became like that with time. And Karna started going along with whatever Duryodhan was scheming, or whatever idea Shakuni was coming up with. And this came to its worst situation in the gambling match. Now, in the gambling match, what Karna did was quite shocking, and that I'll discuss in tomorrow's session. We'll discuss what Yudhishthira did, what Duryodhan did, how the gambling match unfolded. But the one point I wanted to make over here is that destiny can put us in certain situations. But we know Karna, what he did was, he was the person who suggested that Draupadi be disrobed. He was the person who actually called Draupadi a prostitute. He was the person who did terrible things. In fact, so now later on, to his credit, he regrets it and he says, I went too far in pleasing Duryodhan. We'll look at Karna's character a little later more. But the point I was making is, when somebody does something bad, now how much can we say it is destiny, and how much can we say it is that person's free will and their present karma? So, in general, let's move down a particular trajectory. That this theme I'll elaborate more in tomorrow's session also. But broadly, some wrong that is done by someone, that can be circumstantial or that can be intentional. Circumstantial and intentional. Circumstantial means that the circumstances come upon the person and then that person makes a particular choice. So now we could say Karna siding with Duryodhan, that was not even a wrong. He did not really know and he just got the opportunity. Why should he not take the opportunity? If somebody is poor and they get a job in a big Fortune 500 company, why should they not take the job? But later they come to know that particular company is cheating the government, cheating people, they're making substandard products, whatever. Then the question comes up, do I stay on over here? And how long do I stay on over here? Or do I help the company in expanding its nefarious activities? So that's where things start going into the grey zone. So circumstantial broadly means, the situations are coming upon us. But intentional is where we are going toward the situations or we are creating the situations. So when we talk about wrongs that are done by someone, there are circumstantial and there are intentional. So I'll make two more points, small points, and then we'll have question answers. Let's look at the story of Ajamil. How many of you are familiar with the story of Ajamil? Okay. So I won't go into the full story, but a quick recap. The story comes in the Bhagavatam in the 6th canto primarily. And then Ajamil is a very cultured Brahmana. And he's very good qualities he has. One day he is going out to collect firewood for his father's yagya ceremony, which is just daily. And that day when he is going out, he sees an obscene sight. He sees a Shudra and a Shudrani. He sees a man and a woman in an intimate position. And he sees that and he's shocked by it. He's agitated and he pulls his mind away from it, pulls himself away from it and goes away. Now his being exposed to that temptation, that was completely circumstantial. It was not that he planned to go to an area where people are doing this kind of things. Just going to a normal place and then he had that particular sight. That could be said to be circumstantial. Now he pulled himself out of that situation. Sometimes what happens is, it's like temptation comes in our mind or sometimes our mind goes into temptation. It's like there is there is a trouble inside the mind or the mind is inside trouble. They're two different things. So for what happened was, for him he came out of that situation, but that memory remained. And it kept replaying in his mind. And that desire, that craving became so strong for him, he said, I have to go and be with her. So he found out where that particular prostitute was and he went and he went in with her. Now we could say that, so if you consider Ajamil's, the sight, that was circumstantial. Now we could say the first fall. Was that circumstantial? Well, you could say it is partly circumstantial, partly intentional. Isn't it? That he chose to go to her. Now we can say sometimes that some sight can create such a desire, that craving is unbearable and just needs some relief. The cravings can be like a fire inside and you just can't deal with it. So, okay. But the first fall, we can say it is circumstantial. But then, it was not enough for him. He said, I want to go to her again and again. And then eventually decided that I don't want to go to her, I want her to be with me. And then, he rejected his chaste wife. He rejected his parents. Now, nobody would want, he was a Brahmana. Brahmana means he would do yagyas. Now, who would want a Brahmana to come and do their wedding marriage ceremony if that Brahmana has abandoned his own wife and is staying with a prostitute? Right? So he lost his job also. And then he started robbing, he started looting, started plundering people. So we could say that his rejecting his wife, his parents, his job, all this was intentional. There is no circumstantial part in it. So that means what happens is society itself creates some boundaries for us, some barriers for us. Sometimes some wrong ideas, some wrong desires, some wrong temptations come upon us. But just as society creates some temptations, society also creates some boundaries. And if we break those barriers down, if we break those boundaries down, then we can't call that circumstantial. That has to be seen as intentional. So for Karna, we could say his friendship, so circumstantial can be said to be destiny. But intentional is all present karma. It is not past karma. So we might be put in particular situations by destiny, but how we act in those situations, that is our present karma. So how Karna went down a dark track, and still how Karna's dark track and Duryodhana's dark track, they were different. That we'll discuss in tomorrow's session, where we'll be discussing about the gambling match and how things unfolded thereafter. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Today our focus was primarily on Karna and the martial exhibition. So I talked about three main points. Sorry, what happened over here? So first point I discussed was about how I talked about tech. Now for success, what was required? You remember tech? What is it? Talent, environment, commitment. Yes. So both Karna, Arjuna, and even Duryodhana, they all exhibited this. So they all were successful through that. But then we want to talk about success or growth. We can talk about it two ways. One is in terms of the skills, that is competence, and the other is in terms of values. So all three of them, they went up in terms of skills, everybody grew, but in terms of values, we'll discuss how Kauravas went down, and Karna we'll discuss gradually. So basically, wherever so Arjuna got opportunity, he grabbed the opportunity. Duryodhana also got the opportunity, he grabbed it. Karna had to work harder to create the opportunity. He also grabbed the opportunity. And they all grew. Then we talked about when they are growing, the martial exhibition. Specifically what happened? We could say everything that happened there was circumstantial. Largely, that the circumstantial was their rivalry. So what happened was that Karna stole Arjuna's movement. Although he did not intend to, Karna stole Arjuna's movement. This was this big movement, but Karna stole it. Now, Arjuna did not steal Karna's movement. Arjuna could have done that, but he did not. He could have made an issue that this is not your kingdom to give, the Anga kingdom. So, in that sense, there was a difference between the two of them, but that was unfortunate. And then, the last point we discussed was about wrongdoings. That Karna was bowled over by Duryodhana's what he thought was his kindness. But then what happened was, for Duryodhana, Karna was still junior to him or subordinate to him, not junior in age but subordinate in power, in position. And for him, Shakuni was not superior just in age to him, but Shakuni became like a father figure. So Shakuni replaced Duryodhana's father, Dhritarashtra. So we discussed the difference between affection and attachment. Affection is good, but attachment is not. Affection means that I don't like to say no. Attachment is where I can't say no. So we discussed the difference between weakness and wickedness. And then when some wrong is being done, is the wrong circumstantial or intentional? So it could be circumstantial, that means the situation comes upon us. But the intentional means we create the situation. So what happened was that we discussed the story of Ajamil. So Ajamil, his first situation was it came upon him circumstantially. So the sight was completely circumstantial, but the abandoning or rejecting, the abandoning his family and abandoning everyone, that was completely intentional. So Karna is on that trajectory where circumstantially he gets caught up in the wrong side, and then because of that he starts going down a dark track. So how that unfolds we'll discuss in tomorrow's session. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
The first question is the difference.
Do we have the mic? Okay, no problem. That's fine. That's fine.
So you can repeat it.
You can repeat. I'll repeat it.
The first question is weak and wicked. The first question.
That's okay. I'll just repeat it. No problem.
The first question was
But it's calling me echo. You can just speak it. Just leave it. Leave it.
the first question is between weak who cannot say no to a temptation and a wicked who doesn't want to say no to a temptation, as I explained to you. I feel I belong to the first category, or most of us, if I can say that. So are we to assume that those who are in the first category will be forgiven by God or by destiny or whatever it is? Am I correct in assuming so?
Okay. So we're talking about the difference between weakness and wickedness, and most of us who are struggling sadhakas will fall in the category of weak. So can we say the weak will be forgiven by God? Well, yes. It depends. See, basically, if we consider there are broadly, you can say 3 categories of people: goodness, weakness, and wickedness. So you could roughly correlate this with Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, but I won't make it an absolute correlation, but we could roughly correlate it like that. Now, the difference is that those with weakness, whom do they associate with? If they associate people with goodness and they maintain that association, then if this is stronger, then they will be pulled upwards. But if their link is any problem?
Can you disturb the class for a second? Just, I have to make one.
Sure, please. Yeah.
Hey Krishna, car number 342559. 342559 Mitsubishi. Can you please remove the car and park it somewhere else? Hare Krishna.
Mitsubishi which? Pajero?
Okay, no problem. So, if that weakness gets associated with wickedness, then it becomes a problem. So, for example, if we consider in the Mahabharata the example of Caitanya. Now, Caitanya came under the influence of Manthara. And she did something which is terrible. And that action led to terrible consequences. Ram was exiled, Dashrath died with a broken heart. But eventually, when Bharat came back, she listened to Bharat. And when she listened to Bharat, then she came to her senses. And she actually repented at that time. And she even went with Bharat to try to request Ram to come back. So, once she was susceptible to bad association, but she was also receptive to good association. Now, if we consider Duryodhan himself. Now, Duryodhan had the association of Vidura. He had the association of Bhishma. But he was more influenced by the association of Shukuni. Now, we could say Duryodhan himself was not weak, he was wicked. But even if we assume he was weak, he was actually influenced by the association of Shukuni. So, you could put it this way. A more precise way would be that we say Dhritarashtra is here and Duryodhan is weak, wicked, and Shakuni is even more wicked. So Dhritarashtra would not listen to Vidura. Actually, that's not correct. He liked to listen to Vidura, but that's all he liked to do. He would not act on what he heard. He just liked to hear good advice, but not act on that advice. It is only when Duryodhana was removed from his life that he became ready to then Vidura's words had impact. Till Duryodhana was there in life, his words had no impact on him. So Duryodhana was like a cancer that had to be removed. Now, if we consider, for some people, so if somebody is weak, then there is something which is wicked in their life, which is dragging them down. And they have to cut off that influence. That could be external in terms of some people, or it could be also the effect of that external in terms of the memories and the conditioning that we have. So that's why one of the principles in bhakti is always remember Krishna. Keep your mind engaged in Krishna's service. Because what happens is, our mind, we can't really call it wicked completely. There are good impressions also in it, but there are a lot of bad impressions inside the mind. And if we let ourselves be influenced by the mind, then the mind can drag us down to wicked things. So we could say, in terms of the same influence, we are here, our mind, more in terms of the mind's dark conditionings, you could say. Could call it mind. The mind's dark conditionings are here. And so they are like the wicked part inside us. And our guru, our satsang, our seva, these are all the upper influences for us. So it is, of course, the guru is transcendental, not just in goodness, but relatively in this framework, that it is for us to decide, will we let this influence be stronger or this influence be stronger? So depending on that, it's not so much of whether we will be forgiven or not. It is eventually Krishna can forgive us, but ultimately we have to change. If we don't change, say suppose somebody is attached to something and they go back to the spiritual world, and suppose somebody likes to watch movies, somebody likes to talk about politics. Now these are not sinful things, these are just distracting things. But just take that as an example, that if somebody is too interested in politics, too interested in sports, too interested in celebrity gossip, then they go back to the spiritual world, everybody is talking about Krishna. Even if Krishna takes them to the spiritual world, they will get bored over there. Isn't it? So, going to the spiritual world is not just a matter of relocation physically. It has to be redirection emotionally and internally. So, in that sense, I don't think we should worry so much about whether we'll be forgiven or not. The more important thing is whether we will be redirecting our heart in time or not. Okay? That's why we don't want to be too karma conscious. Oh, I did this bad karma and because of that I will be punished. We want to be more Krishna conscious. Will my heart be turning toward Krishna in time or not? Okay? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes, Lord. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your... Prabhu, my question kind of relates to your class, to yesterday's class, in which you spoke about fair and unfair, life being unfair, fairly unfair. And you even discussed how when he went and told Yudhishthir about he being poisoned, Yudhishthir seemed to have a very high boiling point, where he didn't get affected and didn't go in taking rash decisions. But practically, when things come upon us, we don't usually have such high boiling points. And this feeling dawns into when life is unfair, why am I being fair? Why should I play so fair? And how do we raise our boiling points if that should be done? And also not risking inaction. And okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Let Krishna take care of it or whatever.
Could we just come connected to this? Like Karna's reaction to Draupadi was like he gave a bad word like possible. Wasn't it a trigger point for Karna when during Swayamvara Draupadi insulted him in front of Rajya Sabha? That since you are not Kshatriya, not qualified to stand in front, wasn't it a trigger point? What Prabhuji said that maybe his acceptance level was not to that level.
Correct.
A Kshatriya and a capable warrior who could even defeat Arjuna was humiliated. So Was there the trigger point where
Yeah,
he crossed the
possible.
line? So
Good
how
question.
do
So
you-
there are two different questions. I mean, related but different. So let's. How much time do we have, Rose? Bas, it will take at least 5-7 minutes to answer each question. So both questions I'll take. 10 minutes, okay. So let me take each question separately. So Yudhishthir seemed to have a very high boiling point. I like that word, boiling point. I would have used the word breaking point, but either way, okay. So exploding point. So now we will discuss later whether that deciding not to take action against Duryodhan was the right thing or not. What is right and what is wrong is also not so easy to decide. But putting aside whether that was the right thing or not, let's assume that not getting provoked in particular situations is a good thing. So then how do we ensure that we don't get provoked by certain things? So this is, I have a whole class on this topic, but I'll try to quickly explain this. That see, Krishna talks about tolerance in the Bhagavad Gita, and that is in 2.14. Tams titikshasva bharata. Now, before this verse is 2.13. Dehinosmin yatha dehi. And that is talking about intelligence. So when Krishna is talking about tolerance, what is he saying you should tolerate? Is he saying tolerate the Kauravas' atrocities? Oh, you know, the Kauravas did so many things to you and to your wife and to your family. Just tolerate it all. Is that what Krishna is saying? Not at all. So, what Krishna is saying, tolerance is towards having to fight Bhishma and Drona. That fight Bhishma is your elder, he is your grandfather. Fighting against him is painful. But tolerate that and continue fighting. So, my point is, tolerance has to be preceded by intelligence about what to tolerate. So, when Krishna says you are not the body or the soul, the primary purpose of saying that is to tell him that you are worried about killing Bhishma and Drona, but they are souls. And they are not going to die. Because in the first chapter, Arjuna has never once mentioned fear of his own death. That's why Krishna doesn't have to assure Arjuna, oh, even if you die, you will go to heaven. So don't be afraid. That is not Arjuna's fear. So, in one sense, Prabhupada defines intelligence. Later on in the 10th chapter, 10.56 purport, he says that intelligence means to see things in their proper perspective. That means to know what are the big things in our life and what are the small things. So, and then when we talk about tolerance should be to keep small things small so that we can keep big things big. So the idea is tolerance, if we let small things become big, then that is intolerance. But on the other hand, if we let big things become small, then that will be impotence. That will be powerlessness. That will be, say, if we are having a class right now and say there's some small baby who starts crying. Now babies cry. Now if I start yelling at the mother, can't you take care of your baby? What kind of mother are you? If you can't control your child when the child is small, what are you going to do when the child is going to be a teenager? The child will be cursed to have a mother like you. And if I start speaking like that, at the end of the class, no matter how good my class will be, the audience will only remember how I yelled at the mother. Isn't it? So the baby crying would have been a small thing, but my outburst will make it into a big thing. But if suppose the baby is crying and the mother is doing nothing at all, then somebody has to tell the mother, isn't it? Can you take your baby outside? If she can't be quiet, you can take her outside. No, you want the class to go on. So tolerance doesn't mean that I'm speaking for half an hour and 25 minutes the baby is crying, nobody is able to hear the class. The class also has to go on. So what is a small thing? We keep a small thing. But what is a big thing? We want to keep it a big thing. So in that sense, tolerance has both these aspects. Keep the small things small so that we can keep the big things big. And that's why what to tolerate and what not to tolerate, we need intelligence for that. And generally it is very difficult to have that intelligence fully manifest at that particular moment itself. That's why before we need to do some homework and remind ourselves of what are the important things in our life. Say if we know we have a difficult relationship with someone and we are going to meet that person, then we have to be clear, why am I meeting this person? Okay, I had to discuss this particular issue, this big issue. Even that person makes some snide remarks, just speaks something disrespectful. As long as I can get this work done, that's the important thing. Let's do this and get out of here. So if we forget what is the big thing for us, then we can go wrong in both ways. Sometimes we let the big thing become small, or we may let the small thing become big. And that's why 2.15, what Krishna says is the fruit of tolerance is transcendence. Yam hina vethayantyete purusham purusharshabha samadukha sukham dhiram somrudatvaya kalpate. Transcendence means what? The small thing becomes so small as to become insignificant because we become absorbed in the big thing. So tolerance should lead to transcendence. Like we say, tarorapi sahishna tunadapi sunichena. The result of that is what? Kirtaniya sadahari. So if that is not happening, then we have to change the situation. So tolerance is not an isolated virtue. Tolerance has to be preceded by intelligence and it should lead to transcendence. Okay? Thank you. Now, about the question of when Karna used a foul word to describe Draupadi and he had her humiliated. Could that be because he had been humiliated in Draupadi's Swayamvar? Well, yes and no. What I mean by yes and no is that yes, Karna had felt disrespected in the assembly. Now the Mahabharata, while the overall story is quite consistent, there are some areas with a slight difference. So according to some versions, it is Draupadi herself who said, that is, I don't want him to compete. Now in some cases it's a Drishtadyumna who said, he